play there? Can you play there? We did it. We did it.
Sherri, get the kids on the side. Come on, this is important business. Sherri Rabinovitch.
You good, sir.
Thank you for joining me. This is a new series that I'm doing, and I even made a high profile intro reel. Look at this over here. Entrepreneurs in quarantine. We used to wear suits. Now we grow our beards and wear hats.
Well, but we hope everybody grows their beards.
We hope so. We're starting a trend. So, Sherri, I know you've got a lot of interviews coming up and you got a lot of things. Let's get right into it. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm an HR consultant and I provide real-time HR solutions to small to medium-sized business and employees. Real-time,
that is the key word. Everybody wants. Yes, sweetie. Oh, I got to get my daughter a paper. Hold on a second.
That's all
good. You do provide real time because everybody today is operating in real time because no one knows what to do. Yes. And there are so many questions. I just had such a good interview with George Tsikas, bankruptcy trustee. Yes. I had such a great chat with him. It's so important, but I'm really excited for the chat with you. Tell us about your business and how it's affected the HR industry. And we're going to get into employers and employees. That's what people really want to know.
Yep. So the HR industry, it really just depends on what type of HR professional you are. And I'm not going to disparage my colleagues, but not everybody is informed in the same way and has the same training. So some people say they're in HR, they're a human resource professional, but they're in sales or they're a headhunter or whatever you want to call that, but they don't have HR training. So they're just disseminating information without actually understanding it and explaining it.
Sure, that's a really good point. Everybody is an expert when the you know what hits the fan.
Yes.
Let's get right into it. Let's talk about from the employer side. The questions that I'm answering are: do I have to show up to work? Do I get paid for sitting home? Do I have to work on a computer? Do I have to see my tell me let's start with the employer side. What are the employer's rights and obligations right now?
So an employer, the fact of the matter is, unless you're an essential service, you should not be. And then this is the reality of working from home.
Yeah. This is the real stuff right here.
This is the real stuff. So the fact of the matter is, employers should be closing down their businesses because we have been told by both provincial and federal governments to do so. However, we have essential services, and there are plenty. So if those individuals need to go into the workplace, that workplace needs to be safe. So
what does that mean? What does that mean, safe? They're in a bubble? What does that mean?
Not only social distancing, but the environment needs to be clean. It has to be cleaned on a regular basis, and it has to have a deep clean. Like it's not just, I took a paper towel and I went like this. Yeah. It really means the full gamut. So I know that factories are trying very hard to pare down the number of employees that they have. So they're doing frequent shift work. Sure. And in between those shifts, they're cleaning. We hope that they're cleaning to the best of their ability. Again, everybody is in such a high pressure situation, but correct. Somebody doesn't want to come to work. And also I know that the question recently came up in a lot of conversations. What happens if the employer doesn't feel like they have the tools to keep everybody healthy and safe? Yes, people are still coming in. Then the employer should shut down. And if an employee sees that it's not, safe, then they can report them to the NOM de Travail or the CNESST.
Perfect. So that brings us on the employee side. What are their rights? Are they allowed to stay home? Are they allowed to fear for the safety if they feel that they're not in a clean environment?
If they fear for their health and safety, there's actually an article on the CNESST website under the onglet. Sorry,
tab.
The tab. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's an article. I believe it's number 15, and it really clearly states that if you are feeling that you are not coming to work in a healthy and safe environment during COVID, then you may refuse to come to work without the fear of losing.
That's so important. Let's talk about the benefits available to employees and employers. I mean, I've seen programs like a 10% kind of subvention or credit towards payroll. You know that the government is fast tracking EI benefits. What are your top three that you recommend people check out immediately?
So I think that what's really important is that people recognize that if they don't qualify for EI, so how do you qualify for EI? Over the last 12 months, you had to have worked 700 hours
Mm,
over a 12-month period.
mm,
If you have, and you have had all the deductions at source, I don't mean you've
yes.
worked under the table or as a consultant. We'll get to that in we'll get to that
Yeah.
in a second. But if
Yeah.
you work for the same employer or a variety of employers and you've had a payroll and you've had your record of employment when you've left that employer for the last 12 months and you've earned 700 hours, you are
Sure.
entitled to EI.
Sure. And what about our contractor
And
friends?
everybody else falls under the new plan.
Yeah.
So I know that they're kind of mushing them all together, and it wasn't very clear yesterday. And our prime minister was trying really hard to alleviate the stress from everybody. But the new plan, the CERB, is for everyone else that
Mm,
doesn't fall under EI,
wow. Okay.
and which is most, to be honest, at this
Of
point.
course. Now, let's talk about from the employer side. What are they entitled to?
So employers have a whole bunch of ways to provide relief, payroll relief, as you mentioned it before.
Sure.
And so employers need to file as soon as possible so that they can get that payroll protection.
Sure.
And it's really, really important. I think that that's first and foremost. So you always want to try to make sure that your employees are paid
Mm,
whenever, however possible. And then the other advantage or the other avenue, of course, if you can't get to your money quickly because they're providing loans, right? There's loans that are
of
coming
course.
out, low interest loans and things like that. If that can't happen, my gosh,
Sorry.
don't you love that? Oh, it's you don't apologize to me. That's my lifesaver.
Yeah.
And if you can't qualify, then reducing your work staff
Okay.
wherever possible. And I know that's really hard for people, but it's one way of recuperating funds.
All right. So that's a great. Those are great tips. Now, what do you tell people that actually can find other work during a layoff? Like
Yes.
if they feel like they're not getting back to work, fast enough, are people allowed to go and find other streams of revenue in the meantime? What does that look like?
Yes. So if you are receiving EI benefits, or you're receiving the CR, and now I don't know how the CREB is going to work because they
Sure.
haven't really given out the details yet, and that won't happen till April 6th. But if you are on EI in the simplest situation, if you're currently on EI and it's not enough, you are allowed
Yeah.
to supplement it with other work. So if there's an opportunity to work, which in essential services, there's tons of opportunity.
Of course.
You just need to, and I hope everybody will be honest because there's so many people that are really in
Mm,
situations of dire need.
of course.
You have to fill out your recurring EI online and let them know that you are also working, and because there's a maximum insurable allowance right
Of
now.
course. Great advice. I love that. That was kind of brutally honest. Be careful. Don't screw the system. We're all in this together, and we're all going to pay the price if we abuse. That
Exactly.
is, I mean, that's
That's
great.
what it
I
comes
love that.
down to, Jamie. I
Yeah,
mean,
100%.
at the end of the day, there, like you said, I watched one of your other clips, and like you said, there are single parents, even not single parent, even both. What happens when both partners lose their jobs and they're both laid
Sure.
off? You
That's
still have a
scary.
mortgage payment because our banks are not being as generous as the federal government is leading us to believe.
Yeah, sure.
Renters want everybody needs to get paid. It's a trickle down effect. So what happens when you go and you double dip, so to speak? And I know everybody does what they do, and I'm not there to police. I really don't want to, but just have a little bit. Right now, we're living in a time where we all have to think of each other if we're going to get through this, if we're going to come out of this with our sanity,
Great.
because we're already going to be putting the country in debt.
100%. Yeah, we're,
So
we're, we're leaving a mess to our kids. It's not going to
we
be
are,
pretty out there.
our grandchildren are going to pay for this, but
They're
at the
gonna,
end of
yeah.
the day, we need to survive, right?
So it's a question of survival. Tell me one thing that you've learned during this crisis that has surprised you. Something that had, your aha moment or your enlightenment. Tell me about something that you've gone through.
So, it's been both really, really bad and really, really good. So, um, the horrible things that I've seen is how people have treated each other, how people have reached out for help from me, and their response to me when they don't like my answer has not been very pretty. So I've seen the worst of people in these
Sure.
times.
Sure.
I have been really disappointed in the response and how people have treated each other. And I know social media is not a pretty place on a good day, but
Yeah.
it seems to
Yeah.
bring out the worst. But however, I will say to counter that, what I have been really impressed by is those people who are getting the right information and are sharing the right information.
Sure.
People have been celebrating that and
Yeah.
sharing it. And, there are all kinds of good news movements out there where people are coming together and we see the rainbows and we will
Yeah.
get through this. And we have our government leaders who have really been exemplary, that's been the most surprising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, really, I mean, Legault, I don't believe in his politics, but my gosh, he has rallied the troops
Yeah. He did great.
and we have to look to him, and he's been an incredible leader. So if you're feeling, the message I would like for people to know is that if you're feeling lost or alone, look to your leaders, look to the people you can talk to, do FaceTime, Skype, Zoom. We have all this incredible technology. And if you're dealing and you're worried about your older parents or grandparents, I'm impressed that my parents have iPhones and they know how to do FaceTime.
Sure.
So find a way to connect with them, even if it's just a telephone call. We actually
Yeah.
did a drive-by goodie drop. So we got a whole bunch of cookies together and we drove by my parents' place
That's
so that
awesome.
they wouldn't contact, and my mother-in-law's. Little gesture so people don't feel forgotten.
I
It's
love that. I love that message, Sherri. Before I leave you, how will life change when this is done?
uh, I hope for the better. Truthfully, I hope that employers will encourage people to stay home when they have just a simple cold,
Sure.
and remember that that's what's really important, so we don't spread sickness.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, this
even
is really, this has catapulted your message of, teleworking and remote
yes,
working. I mean,
yes.
this is ushering in. I mean, you're taking off the Band-Aid at warp speed. This is unbelievable.
Exactly. And all
Yeah.
those organizations that are realizing they're technologically backwards and
Oh
that they
yeah.
can't help support their employees when they need to work from home. So if you have a cold but you're able to work, why are you taking a sick day? If
Yes.
if your child is sick and needs to be home from school to prevent the spread of sickness, right? Again, we go back to that really
You
good
got it.
point.
You got it.
Then why don't you give them the tools? Like, it just seems so obvious. So maybe now companies are going to be like, oh, goodness gracious, we should have had these policies in
Sure.
place. Empathy, maybe we've created a world more of empathy. Employees,
Mm.
colleagues, people are realizing how valuable their colleagues are when they're not with them anymore.
Empathy is a great word. It keeps coming up over and over again. Sherri Rabinovitch, I know you have another meeting. That's already 2 minutes late. This
That's all
has
good.
been.
That's
This is my.
fantastic. Thank you so much for giving me
This
the
is.
platform. And
Are you kidding? You deserve the platform. You're doing great things. I know that you're really helping as many small businesses, entrepreneurs, stay-at-home parents, people with no jobs, people who are looking. You're working on so many people. So I appreciate that. I know that our community does as well. Have a great day. Take care of your kid, and we'll get our kids together for a play date when this is all done.
yay! Thanks, James.
See ya.